Can't afford them on your shitty.
True statement.
Hello, nerds, and welcome to Crossing the Nerdverse. My name is Travis. Joined with me, as always, is Eric and Ryan. Ryan, how you been this week?
Oh, it's been an excellent week. Little bit better than last week. Lots of ups and downs, but it's been great on the nerd side of things. Still on the Magic the Gathering train, as it were. So been having a lot of fun with that.
You made a special trip all the way up to Albuquerque to visit a nerding shop, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I had a really good time. I want to give a quick shout out to Chris at Astro Zombies Comics and Records. Fantastic shop. If anybody's ever in Albuquerque, be sure and look them up. Astro Zombies, great place.
It's been interesting, to say the least. Work's been a little busy, learning different things at work. Growing up. Nerd stuff I haven't done as much. Again, I've been messing with and learning editing. It's been rather interesting.
That's nerd stuff, man.
It is, but I like the simple stuff. I'm not like I'm the guy that found it funny and fun to beat coconuts together to sound like a horse. I'm that guy. So now, unfortunately, though, I have to be the guy that's got to learn how to make the coconut sound without the coconuts with the horse on the screen. So it's not as fun. I'd rather be bullshitting and playing video games. I do need to get back into Arena, though. I don't know a lot of people around here to play some Magic, but I do want to get into Arena again to get some Magic going. The new, what is it, Dominaria or something like that? The new set that came out recently.
New set just dropped. Phyrexia, all will be one. Not on Dominaria anymore.
That's right. Yeah, Phyrexia. You're correct.
Oh, there's Hasbro driving that train, making sure that new cards come out every 3 days, so we're never caught up. But yeah, so I definitely need to get back into Arena so I can get my Magic on. It's been a while.
Absolutely. For those of you that didn't get that reference, that's our TCG episode, just a few back. Go check it out.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I can't think of anything else though. No, that's it, Travis. What do you got?
Yeah. Like with you, work has been absolutely insane here recently. I caught up on it. But when I do have my downtime, of course, I'm still powering through the Dragon Age video games. I actually had to restart Dragon Age 2 the other day. Made me a little sad. I forgot that there was a quest that I needed to complete before I started X2, and I totally forgot about it. So, been speed running through the first half of the game yet again. But
I absolutely love when games punish you like that, and it's so sad they don't anymore, dude. There needs to be punishment and rewards for doing certain things in games, and the fact that so many games today let you go back or you could just do it later or something. It's so cheesy.
Witcher 3 had a lot of those quests actually for specific items that you just couldn't go back and get once you were done with the first act. So yeah, there's definitely you definitely still see it. Like I said, the biggest culprit was Witcher 3. I do what I call my raw playthrough, where I go through and play with no spoilers. I don't look up anything online. I just run through. Decide is how I decide, and then I'll backtrack. And I didn't realize just how much I had missed until I started reading some of the online guides, and I was like, my God, I missed a good third of the game.
When do you think Witcher 3 was released? What year?
2014.
18.
15. So you were close.
Oh.
So it's been a while. It's same with so if you look at Dragon Age, that's what I mean. Those games were a while ago. So
yeah,
I don't think the punishments are still around in games like they used to be. Bring them back.
Actually, that is going to be an interesting segue to tonight's topic. So tonight's topic, I chewed on it for a long time. And since I was in charge and I got to lead us on this quest, I chose a particular path and one that I think is going to be very near and dear to all of us. And, our very first episode, we were talking about geeks, nerds, dorks. And one thing I don't think we spent enough time talking about is what exactly we have in the Nerdverse. It is a huge expanse, the Nerdverse. It's massive. And just like I said a minute ago, Eric, you're coding or not coding, but editing and doing that kind of stuff. That's all nerd stuff. And tonight's topic is going to cover a spectrum of different aspects of the Nerdverse. I'm talking, there is something that many of us have in common, whether you are coding a computer, creating a video game, playing with trading cards, sitting at a tabletop at D&D, or you're part of that very special and massive fandoms of professional sports, be it basketball or football or hockey or the biggest culprit, baseball. We all have little superstitions, little rituals, little moments that we feel like we're cursed, that nothing will happen. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
One must appease the machine spirits. The rites must be
Exactly.
done correctly.
You got to burn your incense. You got to appease the machine spirits. And so tonight, I want to talk about rituals and superstitions inside fandoms. Now, I think I want to start off by just kind of asking you guys, if I just say, what's a fandom superstition? What pops up? Like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Travis, you already said burning the incense, right? If you're working with a computer or a printer or a piece of technology that's a little finicky, you got to appease the machine spirits. You got to talk sweet to it. You got to do the right things to make it happy so it'll work with you.
I don't talk sweet to machinery. I gave that up. I threatened to that's my immediate thing. If it starts to act up, I'm like, I can just go buy another one of you. I can find this device in countless stores in the DFW Metroplex. I don't even care. If you want to continue to act up, I'll just you.
For sale, one laptop, slightly shotgunned.
So this is kind of weird, but I don't think I have any superstitions when it comes to things I enjoy doing. So like when I think about it, like with D&D, my computer, my PlayStation, Switch, anytime I'm doing any of that stuff, rolling dice, I do a little bit.
Dice.
That's probably the only thing in the Nerdverse that I really have a superstition. Like if I roll a dice, I get a bad roll probably about 2 to 3 times, I switch it. So like when I play on Fantasy Grounds as a DM, if I get 2 or 3 bad rolls, I immediately switch the color. Obviously I can't switch total dice, but I switch the color. So I think that's the only thing. Like when it comes to video games and stuff, like if I replace a controller, it's usually because I threw it against the wall. If I replace a system, it's because it burned out. I don't like do anything fancy with it. What's up, Travis?
No, I'm with you. Dice jail is a real thing. As soon as dice start performing badly, they've got to be in timeout. So, again, tabletopping with Ryan for more years than I want to mention out loud, just because I don't want to date myself quite that bad. But yeah, as soon as the dice rolls bad, it's going straight back into that dice bag, and a new one's coming out. I do have to ask you guys, are you 20 up or 1 up? Are you highest number up or lowest number up?
Just so you know, Travis, the lack of hair gives away your age. Just throwing that out there.
So this is a big one. This is one I wanted to cover tonight because this is a point of contention amongst me and my peers. When your dice are resting on the table, whether you're playing D&D or Warhammer or any of the miniatures games, how do you rest your dice? Are they haphazard? Do you not care? Do you rest them highest number up so that they get used to that number being on top? Do you rest them lowest number up so that all that weight drifts around and those ones are already out of the dice's system? What do you do?
I always highest number up, because the molecules will settle down at the bottom and it makes them heavier on that side, so you're more apt to roll that 6 again. Molecules have all settled down at the bottom. It's science, man. It's simple science.
It's simple science.
See, I'm the opposite. Like I don't do anything fancy when I rest my dice. They rest where they rest. But if I was to put a number up, it would be the lowest number, because that way that number's already pinged once. So the way I look at Lady Luck, like she don't want to see that one that many times. Like statistics, man. She want to see something new, so she ain't gonna want to see that one again. So if I was to play with luck, I would probably rest everything on 1, and figure that she would give that kiss and I'd hit that 20 or the 4, which is the best dice, or whatever it may be. So, but yeah, generally when I play, it's haphazard. I just be where it is when I move it.
So that's going to lead us into a second point. But I personally, I'm a haphazard, but for a reason. I'll leave my dice haphazard, and when I go to roll, I will look at them. Whatever's showing lowest, I roll that one because it's already pinged. It doesn't want to do the same number twice in a row. And I get that statistically, you look at a 6-sided die, you got a 16, 17% chance rolling that number regardless. But repeating that number over and over gets lower and lower. And so I leave them haphazard, but I always pick the lowest to roll. Now,
Ryan,
here's the next question. Oh, Travis, what do you got?
You're over there just worshiping the chaos gods. You just let them sit haphazardly. You don't put them in a specific order. Oh my God.
And it's been to my detriment, and it's very, very interesting, and I'll bring it up. But the next question I'm going to ask is one of the most controversial tabletop RPG questions. How many sets of dice, not just do you own, but do you bring to a game?
Bring all of them. You always bring all of your dice.
Yeah, bring everything.
Always.
Yeah, everything
always.
I got. Because I keep it all in a bag, like a bag of holding.
Oh, you just let your dice touch?
Mine though is usually in a bag of crown instead of a bag of holding. So that's what I do. But mine always, mine all touch. I can't be one of those fancy people, man. I've seen it too. Like if you go on our Twitter, there's a lot of great, especially Heroes of the Nerdverse Twitter. There's a lot of great people out there that make resin dice and all these different dice and like containers for them and things like that. And like that stuff is super cool. But at like the end of the day, I put so much into books if I'm playing in person and stuff like that. Like I just let it ride with the dice. Like they're just in a bag.
So I always bring a minimum of 3 dice. I also agree with you, gentlemen. If I go to a game, I'm taking everything. I'm bringing everything I own. However, I do not let my dice touch. They don't get to influence each other until they are on the table. And if I have a dice that's performing bad, I won't put it with the other ones. I don't want its bad luck to wear off. And there's a lot of people that will say, no, you have to put it with your other ones because you want the good luck to counteract the bad luck. But all of my dice go into one big bag, and then each set is in its separate little bag on the inside.
You got to put them, they have to be together because they have to talk to one another, right? That poorly needs to know, like, that it's being replaced by one of these better ones in the bag. You can't just have them sequestered. It's not going to let it continue to be a bad die.
Okay, I have a couple other points to cover multiple fandoms, but another dice question. Have either of you, Eric, because I know Travis's answer already. Eric, have you ever destroyed a die?
Actually, out of all the things I've destroyed in life, be it controllers, TVs, jerseys, books, all kinds of video games, everything else, literally bent a Madden disc in half. Anybody that deployed with me, Afghanistan, was there when I angrily tried to snap a disc, which is not easy to do. I have yet to destroy anything D&D. No books, no dice. If I have any, like, not the miniatures that you used to play, but if I had like any like dragons I'd purchased or anything to kind of go with it, even though it wasn't D&D, none of that I've ever intentionally destroyed. Shockingly.
100% have destroyed an entire set of dice. In my defense, it had done. These dice were obviously cursed. I ever rolled above the 50% mark on a single one of them for like 2 sessions in a row. And so I took them out of the dice bag, and I'm pretty sure I threw them in like a campfire or something. I forget how I went about destroying them. I think the first thing I tried to do was crush them with like some vice grips. And I don't know if you guys know this. Plastic dice remarkably hard in that regard. They just kind of change shape and get like scuffed up. You really can't just shatter them, which was my original. I wasn't a smart kid, so I guess I just didn't realize that plastic was just going to bend. But yeah, I think they ended up in a fire at some point. So yes, you 100% can and should destroy dice if they perform poorly.
So I've had it one time. I destroyed a die one time, And I did it very traditionally. I smashed it with a hammer. And it was a D20. And I'm not saying I regretted the decision because, like Travis said, it needed to happen. But I forever looked at the rest of that dice set that was sans its D20. And I think about that. So in regards to dice and in regards to dice superstition and dice ritual, one of the biggest culprits for me, obviously, is D&D. How you roll your dice is big for players. How your dice rest on the table. Do you leave them in a dice tray? Do you use a dice tray? Do you let them be around the other dice, or do you sequester them? Because dice jail is real. And I, for one, I've had mixed results with the set an example for your dice kind of mode. And this section of the episode, I'm going to dedicate entirely to our friend Ugly, who blows me away with the way some of his stuff can go. So Ugly dutifully rests his dice, I believe, on the 1. And with D6s, when you're playing a miniatures game like Warhammer, you're having 20, 30, 40 dice on the table at a time. And I've watched him do amazing things with D6s. Reality bending, probability destroying things consistently. And I had one set of dice. I originally purchased them because they were green and swirly and spooky looking for a Skaven army in Warhammer Fantasy. Those dice were terrible. Terrible. I once had 21 dice come up natural ones. Uh-oh, Travis got something.
Those were my favorite set of dice that you ever played Warhammer with. Are you kidding me? I could have had you rolling those things all day. You dealt more damage to your army than I ever could.
And so these dice, I had it for years, and they sat in their own container, and they had to watch me play game after game with other sets of dice. I would pull them out in full view and say, look at these dice, and look that I'm playing with them because they decided to be part of the team. And they never got better. And I kid you not, I tried one last time. They had a last chance on a 1,000-point Warhammer game and did not improve. And I gave them away. We had somebody stop by, just hang out for a minute. And I said, hey, man, do you want a set of dice? And he went, just like for nothing? I said, yeah. And I handed him a full stack of dice and said, good luck. Felt like I was giving him a gremlin.
Was this the Eldar debacle? Is that the trip you're talking about? Where?
No, it wasn't the Eldar debacle.
Okay.
Ugly had sold his Tyranid army. And so, of course, the guy that bought the Tyranid army stopped by, and I said, hey, man, you just bought an army. Do you need dice? Sure enough. I hope they work for him. But the rest of my dice watched me give those dice away in their entirety. So in regards to this kind of stuff, the ritual and the superstition of it, I think that every geek, nerd, and dork out there, regardless of your fandom, has something. They always have that one little itch, that one little tick that maybe they don't even talk about, but they do it just in case. Because as the saying goes, it's only weird if it doesn't work. And so I got a couple of sweet examples here. The first one, and this one, the king of superstition in fandom, baseball. Right? There are so many little ticks and rituals and things that happen in baseball that I couldn't even find a comprehensive list. The most common, obviously, you're looking at lucky bats, lucky gloves, or the way to place a bat or the way to point a bat after you hit. All big things. Walking on chalk lines on the field is apparently a no-no. I didn't know that.
That's universal for every baseball player. None of them touch the chalk line.
Nobody touches the chalk line. Interesting.
No.
Okay. And there's other stuff like batting stance rituals. Some people will write names or words in cages or at the plate. And I think that's kind of cool.
I will attest to the fact that the beginning ritual, when you're going to do something, especially a repetitive task, like one that you've done just countless times, I set myself up for success by doing the exact same build-up every single time. And it triggers that muscle memory for me where I'm like, okay, if I approach this the exact same way I've approached it every other single time, I do everything the exact same way, foot stands here, body position here, off we go when I do this task. It's the same way every time, to the point when I get ready to paint eyes on models, I have my little ritual that I go through. And the first thing I do is I line up my little brushes and exactly how I'm going to need them. And then in front of the brushes are the colors of paint that I'm going to use one at a time. And I do that every single time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and that was one of the more intriguing parts to me, is that some people, and myself included, they will have reasons. Nearly everybody has a reason for it. And sometimes it makes a lot of sense. It's just logical. I'm going to need these brushes in this order, right? I'm going to need these paints in this order. When realistically, you could do it however you wanted to, but it works for you. And because it's worked, you continue to do it. And now it's a ritual. But sometimes you have people that they can't even explain why it works. They just know that it does, and they'll do it every time. There was a really famous commercial several years back about a guy where if he could eat an entire hot dog at a baseball game before the runner got to first, he was going home. And that's just the way it ran. And in my research, there are several different baseball players that will eat the exact same meal before a big game. One of them was chicken. It brought up the whole chicken, winner chicken dinner to me, right? But he ate chicken before every big game, and it seemed to work.
Eric's ritual is just drinking. That's just a couple of scotches and off he goes.
Yeah,
all of our rituals just drinking at this point.
Well, one thing I'm doing, like while we're discussing this, is trying to get more interaction with everybody. So I'm just kind of on our Twitter and stuff like that, and our Facebook, just trying to monitor. Well, we're going through, in case anybody wants to reach out or anything like that. I just throw it there that we're recording, so they can kind of pick at whatever we're doing, just to see if they want to, get a little involved. Like we talk about all the time, we want involvement. So, it's just another avenue to do it. But yes, my ritual with any recording is drinking, so I loosen up a little bit, I have a little fun, and then it's just be mindful of my P's and Q's.
So we talked about baseball a little bit, but some of the fun ones to me, let's talk about hockey. Now I know both of y'all are big hockey fans. I'm assuming Eric's a big hockey fan. He lives in Canada. I think it's
go Habs, go.
Let's go Stars.
So what do y'all have anything that jumps
garbage
right to the top of your list on hockey superstitions?
I don't know about athletes. I'm going to be very honest with you. Like, I could tell you, I know Sidney Crosby is notoriously the most superstitious person in hockey. So if you look some stuff up for him, he goes all out. Like, supposedly he got someone to get rid of a brand new suit they bought because they lost that game, a new truck, all these different things, dude. Like, I don't know how true any of it is. I'm not an athlete. I'm not his friend. But Sidney Crosby is the most. But I have my own. So I won't wear certain Habs jerseys when I want them to win. So when they're going through the playoffs, if I wear a jersey and they lose, that jersey goes away until the end of the playoffs. Now, we haven't gotten to the playoffs a lot lately, other than the Stanley Cup run the other year. Yeah, they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, unlike Dallas. So
you have a jersey timeout.
Yeah, it is. So for that playoffs, I won't touch it. I don't get near it. It's not for me because I feel like that's the reason we lost. Just like I still have the broom from that playoff run where we swept the Jets. I actually bought a broom, a nice one, by the way, not just a cheapo broom, and it even still has the packaging on it because we swept them before. So I have a lot when it comes to hockey, personally.
At least you don't have to put your jerseys in timeout very often, because I don't think you guys are going to make the playoffs again anytime soon.
But ooh, throwing shade. So
it's not something you have to worry about. I'll but you'll be fine.
Yeah, you've how many Stanley Cups have they won in the last forever? One in the last 20 years, maybe one. Is it one? I never remember.
Yeah. So when it comes to the athletes, there are three very, very common superstitions. The first one, playoff beards. It is very common for them to be sporting a beard, sporting more facial hair, because they feel like shaving will, shave your chances at the championship. And so you get the playoff beards. The next one is championship conference trophies. where people will refuse to touch a conference championship trophy. They just don't do it. And on the subject of touching, the third most common superstition is that you will not step on the logo in the locker room. I think that makes sense. I think I'm on board with that.
You forgot what there is one more big one for hockey is how they tape their sticks.
Stick taping.
So the way they tape the ends of their stick it is different. I think also the top of the stick too, but it's more the blade, like the blade on the stick. You will see, like, if you could Google it, like you will see some crazy tape jobs that people do, and some people are notorious for it. It's interesting to say the least. I think a couple people on the Stars actually have some weird tape jobs. I know Jamie Benn does.
I was about to bring that up. Jamie Benn does a wild tape job for the playoffs on his. However, if that wild tape job and that first game gets changed drastically, there is no redemption for that. I think it was last year, maybe year before. Things were not going well during a game, and he completely untaped that stick.
Just a one and done, huh?
Yeah, he wasn't having it.
All right, so that was the athletes. Now, when it comes to fans, there are two that blew the others out of the park. Two superstitions when it comes to fans. And Eric already touched on one, and that's the jersey and how you treat your jersey and what you do with it after a win or a loss. And that was second place only to the lucky seat. And I think this got to be nearly every sports fandom, right? You got your lucky seat. And there are some people that pay big money to make sure they get it every game, every year.
I think that lucky seat thing, though, is probably going to start slowly going away with the cost of tickets being as outrageous as they're getting. I get it, fans and stuff or not fans, owners need to make money to run arenas and pay athletes and stuff like that. But tickets are nowadays, like, they're getting to a point where it's not, you can't take your kid to go like you did when you were a kid. I was very fortunate. I lived in Ohio for a while, so the Blue Jackets are a very affordable team to go see, and an exciting team. Like, they're generally young. I mean, they're not like running away ever with like wins, but they're usually competitive and stuff like that, and they put on a great show. So it is nice, like that's a great thing to see. But when you start talking about like my team, the Habs, to go see a Hab game, for me to try to take my kids, like, to exclude the travel expense, it's not cheap. So to like try to have your seat that you maintain and keep is very difficult. Now I think some people now are doing it in their homes because a lot of people are getting like you could buy your team's Lazy Boy and stuff like that. Well, maybe not Lazy Boy itself, but like an actual like Lazy Boy style chair with your team stuff on it. And I do know people that have to sit in certain spots during games in their house. More football than hockey, but so I've definitely seen that.
Well, and you get a lot of, so we've talked about a lot of common superstitions, right? The way that players behave in hockey and baseball. Football is the same way. The way people do their gloves or set their shoes or little rituals that are very, very common. But you also have a bunch of them that become famous for individual players, individuals in sports. And some of them were kind of cool. Some are very well known. Some of them not as much. So Nomar Garcia-Parra, I hope I'm saying that name right. I probably butchered it. Had a ritual about the way he Velcroed his gloves, where he would rhythmically do and undo his gloves before every bat. He also taped toes together before every game and just kept them that way. Serena Williams, famous for never changing her socks during a tournament, just would not do it. And probably, at least for me, and even as somebody who's not a basketball fan myself, Michael Jordan reportedly always wore his UNC shorts under his NBA shorts every game. And that's a huge one. That's a famous one. You know, Brian Urlacher, who would eat 2 chocolate chip cookies before every single game.
Marshawn Lynch and the Skittles.
Yes, exactly. The green M&Ms story. You know, Ed Belfour didn't let his teammates touch any of his equipment. He refused to let anybody touch any of his stuff, and took care of it all himself. And you get a lot of these that crop up. And I think it's important to include in our fandoms, we're not a sports podcast. There's a bunch of them out there that talk about statistics and plays and follow everything very closely. But I needed to bring up sports in this one because their rituals are so powerful. And you can actually watch a lot of it where it works. There's evidence of it working. And so we come back around to it's only weird if it doesn't work. Now, that was our sports stuff. We talked about dice, which I think is a big one for a lot of nerds out there. How you handle your dice, how you manage it. Do you let other people touch it? And so you're talking about stuff like never roll a dice before you need to because you'll get rid of all the good rolls. Or conversely, you pre-roll your dice several times to get all the bad rolls out early. And then there's one that's pretty common about hot dice, where once you get a good roll on a dice, you keep rolling it because it's in motion. You can't let it cool down.
And you never share your dice.
Yeah, sharing is not caring. It's terrible, terrible luck.
I don't share my dice.
I really carry a set when I take my dice places for other people to use. So that's my sharing ones. Like if you need to borrow dice, I'll loan. Is going to be the same ones. My gold set, Ryan will testify to the fact that has ruined numerous sessions as our DM as I get critical after critical with the little gold set to the point where I was accused of it being loaded until I deployed and I put the gold set in the care of our mutual friend Ugly, who proceeded to roll probably the worst he's ever rolled ever with a set of dice. So we determined that those ones were only lucky for me.
All right, so dice and sports, yes, everybody knows there's superstitions there, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. People that will only drink or eat certain things whenever they're coding or working on a computer. This is what I equate to the whole burning of the incense. The machine spirit is an homage to the lore in Warhammer 40K, but it stands true. You need to... I sweet talk my machines. Like, okay, I get it. You're in a bad mood. I really need this. Work with me. And maybe I should take a letter out of Travis's side of things and start threatening where it's like, realistically, you need me a lot more than I need you. But even video game stuff, especially in esports, but even a casual gamer, you'll have ways that you'll start doing these things to improve your gaming. Some of them are logical, others are not.
The first win for when we were doing Smite pretty intensively. Warm-up game after the warm, it was time for me to get serious. I had to put in the Dip of Copenhagen. Had to have the cope in if we were going to continue running Smite.
No, that's a fact. And sometimes and you'll see it joke around a lot, right? Gamers will be kicking back, they're lounging, and they start doing poorly at a game, and so they'll sit forward, and they get super serious about it. Like, sitting forward increases your reaction time or gives you a better grip on the controller. I know one of the biggest culprits that I've seen in my personal life when it comes to gaming superstitions is Pokemon. Whether you're playing old school on a Game Boy or playing Pokemon Go, everybody has some little ticks that they use to help them catch, right? So on the Game Boy, you hammer the A button to keep them in the ball, or you try to match the ball's wiggle with your left and right buttons on your D-pad. One of mine that I personally have, and it happens a lot in Pokemon Go, is you don't look at it. Don't look at it. It's Schrodinger's Pokeball. If you don't observe it, its status won't change.
Oh, I got a good one for this. So one thing I have always done in video games is even though I know it does absolutely nothing, once I pick an attack in a game, I mash the button continuously until it hits. I don't know why. There's no need. I'm wearing out my button, but like I will mash on that thing like there's no tomorrow. I think it started with Mario RPG because you could time it right to crit. And just because that one game did that, I was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah. Every single game is like this, even hockey.
All games.
Yeah, if I hit the button hard enough every time or a bunch of times, it's going to work. And it doesn't. But yeah, that is definitely one thing, now that I think about it, I've picked up through the years and continue to still do.
Well,
Continue to still do.
to still do. Well, I think it's important to include in our fandoms, you know, we're not a sports podcast. There's a bunch of them out there that talk about statistics and plays and follow everything very closely. I know one of the biggest culprits that I've seen in my personal life when it comes to gaming superstitions is Pokemon. Whether you're playing old school on a Game Boy or playing Pokemon Go, everybody has some little ticks that they use to help them catch, right? So on the Game Boy, you hammer the A button to keep them in the ball, or you try to match the ball's wiggle with your left and right buttons on your D-pad. One of mine that I personally have, and it happens a lot in Pokemon Go, is you don't look at it.
I lean my controller left and right when making sharp turns and or dodge rolls. It's just
Absolutely.
instinctual. I'm like, I've got to get out of the way. So like, obviously, me and the controller are both gonna like off to one side. Lean
No,
real hard.
absolutely. Well, and another one that that I've seen done, I don't have this one, but I've seen lots of players do it, is the aiming tongue. And you bite your tongue whenever you're trying to focus or get something detailed. But I did do a little bit of research, and the most common video game superstition is save twice. Don't trust autosaves, and you save twice. And I am guilty of that one. If I go to manually save a game, it says, cool, game saved, everything's good. I'll do it again. I don't know why. I just don't trust it.
So, out of us, and I expect honest answers from you, who has been playing a stealth game and then been whispering to people to avoid being detected via sound while playing a video game where they obviously can't hear you speak?
I've
100%.
I've never done that, and I've never done the double save. I do save on my own. I don't trust autosave. And I also, because of previous games, I save on my own because you used to not be able to go back in certain spots. So like if you were in a spot and you were too low of a level to do it, you would just have to try to fucking do it. So I started getting used to saving before missions and games and stuff like that. So I could go back to that previous save if I was too low level up a little bit, and then go back to that mission / quest or whatever, and then jump into it and really do some damage.
Well, and the saving concept actually expands. Exactly what you're talking about, Eric. You'll notice a lot of YouTubers and Twitch streamers and those that game for a living. Not only do they save manually and save every chance they can, they'll use different slots where they'll have save 1 and then the next slot down. They won't overwrite. They'll go save slot 2, save slot 3.
Oh, I do that. I have more than one save slot. I always have at least 2. Every game I do. Yeah, because I'll do my very first one, and then my second one will be like right before the next mission. So like I do one initially, and then that way I can alternate. So while I'm doing a mission, I have a save slot going, and then I also still have my original save slot before the mission. So like usually games nowadays, I find no quest is like super long where it's going to take me forever. So it's not as prudent as it used to be. But yeah, I've always had like a save slot for right before and a save slot for during. So while I'm moving through it, I could still be saving because again, I don't trust autosave.
I just tell myself that I'm going to remember to save and double save and all that other fun stuff. And then by the time I get into it, I just play and rely on the auto saves. And then when something goes wrong, I have to go back 5.5 hours.
Yep.
Then I tell myself I'm never going to do that again. And then all the way over.
Actually, I love what you said about the whispering because I'm guilty of that, right? To the point where I've been stealthing in a game and I've reached over and turned off the lights in the room because I didn't want them to give me away. I will whisper. And, we talked about dice, especially in D&D. Everybody has their rituals and their superstitions. It's a wonderful feeling as a DM where your party's doing a stealth mission at the table and then they start whispering to each other. Like they're going to give themselves away by having out of character discussions too loud. and I love that. And I think that any game, any fandom, any geekery that has an undetermined or a variable outcome will inevitably spawn superstition and ritual. And so the next one I'm going to bring up, and y'all may not have any, I have mine, trading cards. Sitting down, playing Magic the Gathering. I have personal rituals. The way that I shuffle a deck changes, whether the deck is sleeved or not, and how I draw my starting hand, the patterns that I use for my starting hand change. Well, actually don't change specifically, because if I draw outside of that pattern, it's always garbage. And so in Magic the Gathering, if a card is sleeved, obviously, and this may just be logic, but I have to be very careful. I never bend my cards or try to abuse my cards. That's a lesson hard learned. But I will shuffle side to side. I will take a deck and I'll split it and I'll shuffle them side to side. but I always shuffle in particular ways. So a deck, when I go to shuffle, splits into 4 parts. You take the top half of the deck, split it in half, so you have 2 quarters of a deck. And then you split the bottom deck in half, so now you have 4 quarters of a deck. And you shuffle a top to a bottom, a top to a bottom, and then all of them back together. Do that 7 times, because we had a buddy of ours named Bryce that one day many, many years ago told me that when you shuffle a deck of cards 7 times, it's as random as it will ever be. I said, okay, so 7 is now my official minimum for how many times I shuffle a deck of cards.
I shuffle like a little kid. I do the little where you just grab them and then just kind of like give them a shake and they fall out randomly. Because if it's sleeved, I'm not trying to do the fancy card shuffle. Unsleeved, I'll do that all day long. As soon as they get sleeved, I'm like a little kid that's just now learning to play card games. I'm like, having a great time.
I gotta abuse the cards. I don't ever like. I don't mind if they get a little bent or anything like that. Like it's nothing. I don't obviously want anything dramatic, but like I don't mind little bending and stuff like that. I mean, it's my deck. I'm never gonna get rid of it. I don't have any particular ways that I shuffle. I just shuffle. I try to do it what I like until I get annoyed with myself, and then I stop. So that way I know I shuffled enough. But the only thing I do that's kind of weird is like if I cut a deck or not. Like when I play somebody the first time, I'll cut their deck. Now, if we play more than once, if I cut their deck and they got a good draw, I won't cut the next time.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I really do with that type of thing. As cheesy as it is to say, it's the whole Yu-Gi-Oh thing with luck of the cards or whatever he says.
Yeah, the heart of the cards.
Yeah, so like I'm big into that. Like, and honestly, you can win every time you sit down, whether your draw is 1 mana or 6 mana. I always think no matter what, like I can pull a win out. Like, so I never stress.
You may not stress, but I do. Eric out there just top decking his entire game strategy. It'll just get better.
See, we can tell the stress by all the hair that's missing off the top of his head. You see this? This is called relaxed. Go with the flow. That
what about
slidey slide over there is called worrying about his cards.
What about draw? How do you draw your starting hand? Now, for me, I do it where I will take 4 cards and I'll fan them out on my mat. Then I'll take 3 cards and fan them out on top of those 4. I do that every time.
I usually just draw from the top.
Yeah, just
one at a time.
Yeah,
I've always been told like you have to draw the 7 from the top. Like it's just
no, yeah, there's 7 cards from the top of the deck, but do you draw them one at a time and put them into your hand?
I don't know. I just draw. I don't know. I've never paid attention. Like I just
start paying attention.
Draw 7 cards. I'm telling you, dude, it's Yu-Gi-Oh, man. It's Heart of the Cards, dude. Every time I look at it, like I've literally sat there and like put my hand over my deck and been like, I really need a mana. Gotta give me a mana. And like I try to get that mana.
That's exactly right. And how people try to coax their decks into top decking is also a superstition or ritual. Do you tap it? Like, come on, baby. Come on. I need a mana. I need a mana. Do you rub it? Do you float over the top of it, trying to impart your will? Or, like me, I'll stare at my deck like I'm going to intimidate it into being in the right order. Like, now is the time. We are about to lose. Fix it. Like, it's not my fault, right?
I rest my hand across the top of it because I know what card I need. I also know there's a pretty strong chance that that's not going to be it. I metabolize my disappointment before I come to it, and I just let my deck know like I'm here for you.
You don't trust your cards. That's what you just told me. You have doubt in your cards. You guys don't have a trust system built. So right now,
it's all about faith.
Yeah, I could already tell. Like you don't trust your cards, so that your cards don't trust you. You're not going to get what you need.
Mine have never sent me on a magical animated adventure, so I really don't have the same, I guess, level of trust in mine that you do in yours. So
I'm just telling you, man, it's all about you gotta have that card love. You gotta have the love to go from the game. I will say, awkwardly enough, 9 times out of 10, I only do the cheesy card thing if I need mana. I find I don't do it as much if I need a monster, which is awkward because I play I try to balance my decks because I'm not very good at making them. So when I do it, like I try to have equal parts monster, equal parts spells, which is stupid. You shouldn't do that ever. The only time I haven't is with goblin decks. I'm goblin heavy. But when I play, a lot of times I do balance. I balance out close to equal with those, so I know it's a horrible strategy. But again, heart of the cards, so I still do pretty well usually. With that, I trust my deck, unlike Travis and his decks, with no faith or trust over there in his relationship.
Okay. Next big one. And I don't remember this one being as prevalent in my gaming group, but apparently it is very prevalent in a lot. Do you bling a deck? And actually, this might apply to several things. Building a computer, right? Do you bling it out? Do you make it pretty? Or do you go for sentiment? So if you're building a deck and you need to put lands in it, do you use lands that you've used before because they've proven to be reliable? Or do you buy fancy lands to make the deck feel special? Or do you not care?
I don't care. I just
no land superstition. Okay.
No land, no card. Like the only thing I do is I try to stay away from different card sets. So like I will, like when I'm playing at the time, like right now, if I was to get back into Magic, I would go buy boxes. I would have to buy at least one, maybe two boxes, because I wouldn't want to play my cards because I haven't collected for the last like year. So it's weird to say because I don't play tournaments, so it doesn't really matter what's in my deck. I'm just going to play for fun. Unfortunately, I guess that's a superstition. I don't know. I have to play with more up-to-date stuff. I do that. The only thing I do like to buy certain colors for my sleeves. So like I won't use certain colors. I don't like blue because I'm red. Blue's infantry, in case anyone's wondering. They are the queen of battle. Just throwing that out there. And
Long
red is
live the king.
Right, red is the king of battle because we do real damage. So I do red for everything. Red and gold. But yeah, so the only thing I do in my decks that's probably is like even boxes and things I purchase to hold all my cards. Like if I buy like nicer boxes, they're usually the red, the golds. I have purchased the dark blues because I do kind of like it with the reds every now and then. And you got to feel some sympathy for infantry brothers and sisters now. If I'm not mistaken, there are females also in that. So
I have to know, since Ryan is my other Warhammer player. So this is going to be directed at you. I don't know if Eric does a whole lot of Warhammering, but Ryan, when a model performs exceptionally well, does it get its own special paint job, or does it get slapped that you are going to put for the rest of the unit?
Oh, 100%. 100% it gets a special paint job. In fact, for a model that performs well, and I'm working on a project right now for it, I had a Rhino for a Space Marine army that just would not die, that ended up getting me a win by rushing the middle of the board, securing an objective that I needed to get me the scant little points that I needed. Now, I've switched away from Space Marines. I no longer play Space Marines, but I kept that Rhino, and it will be converted for use in another army, probably Chaos Space Marines. And so it's already been stripped. It's getting a whole new fancy paint job, and it's getting converted because that Rhino and me, we have good history.
I should have known you were a Chaos worshiper. This podcast, the more I feel like the less I know you. If that made any sense at all.
And
no, absolutely.
And real quick to include some fandom in here from our Facebook group, a gentleman by the name of Bryce actually put out there that they are looking at price increases for Game Workshop stuff. So I'm guessing you gentlemen that do partake of this particular hobby are going to be looking at reusing a lot more of your figures than you used to due to that current thing that's about to occur.
All right. Well, here's the thing about, and I mean, I want to keep us on the superstition, but because Bryce posted the live question, I do want to address it. Warhammer and miniatures wargaming is a bizarre kind of hobby, because all hobbies are a little bit of a money sink, whether it's a big money sink or a little money sink. And everyone really talks about Warhammer because it's expensive. And the fact of the matter is, it is wildly expensive for what amounts to plastic army men. However, the big kicker with Warhammer is that unless you're doing it for the hobby status, you're painting, you're modeling, you're converting, you're one and done. Spend $400 on an army, and you can play that army with those models for many, many years. Now, what they did do is that, of course, they suffered inflation just like everybody else. And so they put out an alert saying, hey, our models are going to increase in price. I don't want anybody to be surprised. We're looking at probably a 30% increase in price. And of course, I'm upset about that. Nobody likes that. But then they did the thing where they increased their prices and then released new, beautiful sculpts for all the units I already owned. And I'm in that trap. I'm going to be honest. I'm in that trap about it.
At least this one, it's only a 6% increase. Like, all things considered, that's roughly on par with inflation rates across the board for this one. So you'll see a few dollars per box increase at the most on it. So most of your individual units that are like the $30, $35 range are going to go up $1 or $2. Your $60 boxes are going to go up a couple of bucks. Your super expensive, very detailed, intricate models like your vehicles, your Tesseract vaults, just to have Ryan look sad, are probably going to go up another $10. But it's just the state of the way things are right now. I know at the height of the pandemic, GW was struggling to get raw materials just to cast plastic. So yeah, I'm not super shocked to see that 6% price increase coming. Obviously, I think that hits in March if I remember the information from the article correctly. So have a little bit of time for you Warhammer guys out there. If you want to go snatch up your models, do it quick.
So in regards to Warhammer and miniatures wargaming, it also has its fair share of rituals and superstition. We talked about the dice already. Travis, you brought up special paint jobs when a unit performs well. I do have one other one that maybe not many others have. If I have a unit that performs exceptionally well, especially a unit that survives a combat that it maybe shouldn't have, or brings down a particularly potent enemy model, I'll name it. It gets battle honors. And I have some that have been promoted from sergeant to even up to captains and majors because they performed well in the battlefield, which is kind of a surprise because I'm a notoriously terrible Warhammer player. Like, I'm not good at the game, but I enjoy it. And if I have a model that performs well, you get a name and then a rank and then promotions. And so I want to encourage them to perform well in the future.
As Ryan sits at like 4-30.
Oh, I don't even know if I'm that high. Like, I'm real bad right now.
To be fair, we know that you beat yourself with the Skaven pretty consistently in those green dice. You're like,
yeah.
it's green like Warpstone. Watch it behave like Warpstone as far as the lore is concerned.
And you know what? I'm claiming those victories. I'm going to put that on my resume. Like, yep, those were successes. I successfully defeated an army. It was mine, but I successfully defeated an army.
Task failed successfully.
Exactly. And so the Warhammer stuff actually has a lot in common with trading card games then, right? Because when we came down to Bling, a lot of people they'll use the same set of lands for multiple decks because the lands have proven to be good performers and good, that kind of thing. And the same with dice. I personally, I'm a Bling artist, which is not easy when you're absolutely broke all the time, but I will put fancy lands in a deck that I want to perform well. I'm actually working on a deck right now. It's a Tiefling tribal deck that I specifically ordered particular arts for their land on because I want it to perform well. And so, yeah, Warhammer's the same way. Special paint jobs, special names. These rituals just kind of crop up and become sometimes very common, or sometimes they're esoteric and rare. But through now every fandom, every geekery that I could think of, whether it's technology, comic books, video games, sports, miniatures gaming, trading cards, there's always something. There's always those rituals that players help feel give them just that little bit of an edge. Now we're going to be closing out here in a minute, but I want to give each of you guys one last chance. Are there any rituals or superstitions that I didn't cover that you think you'd like to share?
I straight up just go through when I'm playing Warhammer against you guys and just hide dice that I've noticed go up on 6s. I'll just kind of like thumb them around the board so you have a harder time finding them.
Oh,
That's
super villain. Touching other people's dice. How dare you?
It's what you get for rolling 6s, man. I got to get those suckers out of the way so you can go back to rolling 1s and 2s.
What about you, Eric? Any superstitions that you got tucked under that belt?
No, I think I brought up anything that like I use or anything I do. I'm not a big superstitious guy with like nerd stuff. I kind of just let it go with the flow. Just a few things I've got. So outside of the Nerdverse, I get a little superstitious with my car or like things like that. But yeah, definitely not too much with the cards or games, stuff like that. You got to believe in your cards. You got to have faith.
Gotta have faith. All right, guys. I would like to take this moment to ask you guys, what superstitions do you have? Whether it's cards or dice or sports or computers and technology, hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Facebook. Let us know. Did I miss something? Was I incorrect about something? What do you do to help you get that extra edge inside of your fandoms and your games? Eric, why don't you hit us with our links?
Yeah, so we have our Facebook group, Heroes of the Nerdverse. Pretty easy to find. Nice, bright, and orange for a lot of things. It is exciting to see. We do keep going up in members, so people out there are definitely getting interested and kind of clicking on. And then with our Twitter, which is I'm a lot faster to honestly respond to anybody if you do it on Twitter than if you do it on Facebook. I still respond on Facebook, but Twitter's just a little bit quicker. I'm not sure. I guess I pay more attention to it. So you got the @H Nerdverse for the big brand, and then for us, if you want like podcast stuff, it's going to be CTN_podcast. So I definitely think if you anything with the podcast, go with CTN_podcast. It's the best way to like, especially replying to Ryan's comment. Like if you want to let us know about some of your guys's and gals and nerds and everything, if you want to tell us about your stuff, reply on there. Let us know. We'll throw out a poll in a little bit and see if we can get some voting going. We also have our website, crossingthenerdverse.com. Heroesofthenerdverse.com still under like a rebuild right now because we're also dealing with getting ourselves some merch. We weren't happy with our previous merch company. So we're looking around right now trying to see what we could do and try to give some away once we do get our merch going. Try to let people know that we appreciate you all listening and throwing us some feedback every now and then. Trying to think. Oh, YouTube. So if you go on our Facebook group for sure and our Twitter CTN_podcast, you can find, I will always be linking our YouTube stuff in case you want to see what Incredible looks like. I'm on there. I'm Eric. I'm the one with the glasses, the sharp dressed individual there. You and that way you could also get a look and not just hear our voices. Even though mine is very sultry. I think that's everything, and I've talked myself up enough. I don't think there's anything. Oh, and if you're wondering about the crazy claw marks in the back, just my kids pick at the wall. Like I don't know, they're crazy. They enjoy themselves. Yeah, so that's it. All right, let's go,
guys. I'm Ryan. I'm the sexy one on the podcast. Be sure and throw out those comments, throw out that interaction. I want to know what your rituals and superstitions are. Travis, roll us out of here.
All right, we are crossing the Nerdverse. Find us wherever you get your podcast from. We're on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, wherever you go to hunt down your podcasts. This has been Crossing the Nerdverse, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining us.